Have you ever felt ignored or left out, even when surrounded by others? In the hustle of modern society, it's all too common to overlook the profound need for inclusion and a sense of belonging that resonates within us all. The Bible, rich with wisdom, speaks directly to this ache in our hearts through stories that reveal the very nature of God's encompassing love and His invitation to an everlasting fellowship. Today, we delve into one such story, the ancient parable of the Great Banquet, and uncover its powerful message about God's boundless grace and the open invitation He extends to each of us. Did you know that in biblical times, banquets were not just meals, but symbols of social status and acceptance? These gatherings were a microcosm of society, where one's seat at the table could mean everything. Yet, there's a tale in the scriptures that flips this narrative on its head, presenting a banquet where the usual rules do not apply. In this parable, a simple meal transforms into a profound representation of God's kingdom, a place where the last are first, and the invitation is radically inclusive. Join us as we explore how this ancient story holds profound implications for our lives today, breaking down barriers and challenging our preconceptions about worthiness and divine love. In a world constantly chasing status and acclaim, the parable of the Great Banquet stands as a stark reminder of God's radically different approach to worthiness and invitation. Envision a host preparing a lavish feast. The table is set, the aroma of fine cuisine fills the air, and the gleam of polished silverware beckons. But when it comes time to gather his esteemed guests, a series of polite declines roll in. Each excuse more trivial than the last. These refusals paint a striking picture of missed opportunities and misplaced priorities. In the same way today, we often find ourselves too busy, too distracted, or too entangled in our own plans to accept the gracious invitations life presents to us. Yet the host's reaction is not one of anger or exclusion. Instead, he sends out his servant with a new directive. Go quickly into the streets, the alleys, and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. This charge captures the essence of divine grace. It doesn't look for the qualified, it qualifies the called. It doesn't seek the perfect, it perfects the seeker. Reflecting on this can unlock a profound insight into how we perceive value and acceptance. It challenges the social constructs of our age, urging us to embrace a hospitality that transcends barriers and extends beyond the comfortable circles we've drawn around our lives. Now, consider how this might disrupt the pattern of our daily interactions. We live in a society that often sidelines the marginalized, yet here we find a narrative urging inclusion and complete reversal of preference. The banquet is a picture of God's kingdom, where love is the currency and the downtrodden are honored guests. What would happen if we adopted this heavenly perspective? Can we envision a community where every individual is valued not for their societal label, but for their inherent worth as part of God's creation? This tale from ancient texts beckons us to do just that, to throw wide the doors of our gatherings, our churches, our very hearts, and to echo the host's call for all to come and share in the feast. Embarking further into our exploration, we now turn our attention to the excuses of those first invited. In the narrative, we find them preoccupied with their lands, their oxen, their personal affairs, each one declining the invitation to the feast. These excuses serve as a mirror, reflecting our own tendency to place worldly matters above spiritual wealth. The lands represent our possessions, the oxen our work, and the personal affairs, our insular lives, all competing for the time and energy that could be devoted to higher pursuits. For instance, consider Jake, a man of contemporary times. His focus on climbing the corporate ladder had consumed him to the point where he neglected his spiritual life. Sunday mornings were spent in the office, while prayerful evenings gave way to networking events. It wasn't until a sudden illness forced him to step back that he reassessed his priorities. In the quiet of his recovery, Jake began to realize that his relentless drive for success had been an excuse all along, keeping him from feasting at the table of community and faith. Through this experience, he rediscovered the joy of spiritual nourishment and the true essence of God's invitation, ever-present, patient, and welcoming. Like Jake, we too are often caught up in our personal narratives, allowing trivial pursuits to overshadow the still, inviting voice of faith. This segment challenges us to identify our own versions of land and oxen, urging us to consider what we may be using to justify our absence from the banquet God continually sets before us. Moving forward in our exploration, we are beckoned to reflect on the expansive reach of God's grace. The master of the house, after being turned down by his initial guests, extends his invitation beyond the expected circle, reaching out to the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame. This act exposes the heart of divine love, which knows no bounds and excludes no one. Just as in ancient times, today's societal norms often delineate clear lines of who belongs and who is ostracized based on a multitude of factors: economic status, social background, or even personal beliefs. Here we confront a vital question. In our world filled with divisions and exclusions, who are those at the edges of our banquet halls? Are they not the ones most in need of an invitation, an acknowledgement of their worth, and a space at the table? The parable calls us to widen our perspective, urging us to look beyond the surface and recognize the inherent value in every individual. Reflect on this within the context of your own life. Who are the people you encounter daily that society has pushed to the margins? How can we embody the spirit of the parable's host, transforming our homes, workplaces, and communities into places where everyone is welcomed with open arms? Take a moment to ponder how you can extend your own invitations, fostering inclusivity in the spirit of the divine example set before us. With this conscious effort, we begin to build a kingdom here on earth that reflects the boundless love of the one in heaven. As we turn to the final aspect of the Great Banquet, we are confronted with the crucial moment of decision. How do we respond to the invitation? In our parable, this represents a turning point, not just for the characters within the story, but for each of us as modern-day listeners. It beckons us to examine our own responses to divine outreach in our lives. Imagine for a moment the scene: the banquet hall, filled with the sound of laughter and conversation, the air infused with the aroma of a sumptuous feast. These are the ones who chose to come, to accept the generous offer laid out before them. They represent the accepting heart, one that recognizes the value of what is offered and responds with eagerness. And here lies a profound lesson for us. To become partakers of this spiritual banquet, we must first accept the invitation extended by grace. Consider now our contemporary setting, where invitations are often met with hesitation, occupied by the clamor of busy schedules and competing interests. How often do we find ourselves declining what is truly valuable for the fleeting and superficial? The parable challenges us to prioritize our spiritual nourishment, to recognize the lasting fulfillment found in communion with the divine. In response to this message, let's visualize how we can embody the acceptance of the parable's guests in our daily lives. We are asked to not only receive the invitation, but to actively participate in the feast. This requires a conscious choice, a step towards spiritual engagement that may look different for each person. Perhaps it begins with joining a prayer group, volunteering within your community, or simply setting aside moments for reflection and connection with God in the midst of a hectic day. The decision to embrace the call into fellowship with God echoes throughout the journey of faith, inviting us to continually renew our commitment. As we draw this segment to a close, reflect on the richness of the spiritual banquet prepared for us. Let us consider ways we might more fully embrace the joy and fellowship that comes with living in accordance with the teachings of Christ, bringing the essence of the Great Banquet into our everyday experiences. In the quiet moments that follow our exploration of the Great Banquet parable, we are left to ponder the depth and breadth of its meaning in our lives. This ancient narrative, rich with the themes of grace and inclusion, beckons us to see beyond our tables of comfort, beyond our circles of familiarity, and to embrace the radical hospitality of God's kingdom. It is here, at the intersection of Scripture and life, that we find ourselves invited to a feast like no other, a banquet that satisfies not just physically, but spiritually. As we draw our time together to a close, let this story reside in your heart. Let it challenge you, nurture you, and ultimately transform the way you live out your faith. The banquet table is set, the doors flung wide open, and the host calls out for all to come. The question then becomes, how will you respond to this invitation? We encourage you, dear viewers, to carry the spirit of this message out into your world. Share your insights, how this parable speaks into your life, in the comments below. Engage with others, perhaps those who feel left out or on the fringes, and extend your own hand of welcome, mirroring the inclusivity of divine love. If this conversation has sparked something within you, subscribe to Divine Light for more illuminating content. Don't forget to like and share this video, spreading the warmth of this banquet's glow to corners far and wide. And for those eager to delve deeper into these ageless teachings, join us in our online forums or group discussions, where we continue to seek together, learn together, and grow in the light of His Word. May you go forth inspired, uplifted, and with the assurance of your place at the table of fellowship, for in the kingdom of God, there is a seat reserved for each one of us. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the parable of the Great Banquet. God bless, and may the peace of Christ be with you always.